So it's day 263, and let's talk about what's going on in Ukraine. By the way, if you don't know me, my name is Darren Gertis. I've been doing these daily updates every day since day 85. So I'll cover the major headlines and try to help orient you to what's going on. If you've not heard me before, please consider subscribing. I do these daily. Okay, let's get into the first article, and that's from the Institute for the Study of War. Russia withdrawal from Kherson City is igniting an ideological fracture between pro-war figures and Russian President Putin. About 3 weeks ago or so, I did a video where I talked about how Putin is not in control. He's really not. He's being dragged along by forces. It's like people are, well, why can't Putin just stop? Or where do we find Putin an off-ramp? No, there's a real tension in Russia between these pro-war ideologues and then the administration. And then there's like a small peaceful community and then a large portion of the country who just doesn't want to get mobilized. But Putin is being pulled by these ideologues who are calling for more and more and more, and it's really not like he can't stop. Like if he stops, he's out of power. Like he's being dragged by this. Okay, Putin is having a harder time appeasing the parts of the highly ideological pro-war constituency due to his military inability to deliver his maximalist goals of overthrowing Ukrainian government and seizing all of Ukraine. So I was reading just today a book I'll talk about in a future video, but the book was it's awesome, and they were talking about like when Russia seized Crimea, it looks like it was becoming bigger, it was becoming stronger, it was grabbing. No, it tied itself up. It actually put itself in a position where now it has to contend with the West and sanctions and other things along. I'm talking about 2014, and it was that same thing writ large in 2022. The analogy that I would give you is like a martial artist. If you put your hands on a martial artist and you hold him by the shirt, that person has tied themselves up, and that martial artist is going to do whatever he's going to do to overcome that very quickly, and he understands how to do it. So Putin has put himself in that kind of position where he's gotten himself entangled. I think that's the best way I can describe it. Russian officials are increasingly normalizing the public and likely illegal deportation of thousands of Ukrainian children to Russia. So part of the mindset is that these Ukraine is a fictional state, but these Ukrainians are basically Russian. We're taking them from their homeland, putting them in Russia, and they're going to grow up as Russians with a Russian perspective and Russian view of the way the world works, which does not include Ukraine. And it's really a genocidal type of concept. Okay, next. I can't stop smiling, residents say. And I'm going to go through a number of little highlights here, but I have a radio, a battery-powered one, said Sasha. I knew the Ukrainian army was coming. We were just waiting. Put yourself in the perspective, somebody who's been for many months. It could be just a few months if you were in the northern areas that were liberated earlier, or it could be the entire 8 to almost 9 months that they were in captivity. I can't tell you how it felt seeing Ukrainian troops. We sat for 8 months without electricity, without water. We slept in our basements, fully clothed. 3 months we waited in their basements. Like, wow. Okay. I can't stop smiling because it's been 8 months of nothing to smile about. I mean, just imagine that that's your experience and what it's like to be liberated from that. That's what these people are experiencing. Now, it's not without its problems, because if we go down even a little bit more, what we'll find is this: all the fields are mined, pointing to the land surrounding the town. A farmer boy went out yesterday to look at the new cemetery and blew himself up. The cemetery. He blew himself up in the cemetery because these people withdrew and thought it's a good idea to mine so that civilians blow themselves up when they're in the cemetery. He survived here and died there. What can I say? Wow. I mean, just that's the kind of evil that we're seeing. And we're seeing more and more reports. I said yesterday, there's going to be more reports of torture and other things, and they're starting to trickle out. After 2 nights of jubilation following the liberation of their city, the people of Kherson on Sunday began to assess the extent of the damage. And so what are they saying? The departing Russian troops left behind thousands of mines, tripwires, unexploded shells. And so now they have to be very systematic as they're going through trying to undo this. But here's what the Russians are doing. They're brothers, right? Ukraine, these people are our brothers, and we're just trying to root out the Nazis in charge so that we can live as one. But those people that are doing that, the Russian troops are carrying out rampant looting in the city, stealing private cars, washing machines, microwaves, women's clothes, and other household goods. They removed 15,000 exhibits from Herzon's art museum and stole the bones of Grigory Potemkin. Now it gets worse. On Sunday, it emerged that they also took most of the animals from Herzon Zoo. Llamas, wolves, donkeys, raccoons, squirrels were all shipped to Crimea. The zoo's raccoon was stolen not by some stupid soldier, but by the Russian command. Like, what's going on in your mind where you think that this is a good idea? This is not the way to win friends and influence people. For nearly 8 months, the people of Herzon have been cut off from the world. The enemy mined all the critical infrastructure objects, and that's like how they leave. They're not even like leaving, like we're leaving, we're checking out, we're going to create our defensive line across. No, it is let's create as much havoc as possible along the way. By the way, yesterday, Cheryl Waitley left me this comment, nothing left behind, because I talked about this in yesterday's video where I said, RT said nothing was left behind. And then I showed video of what was left behind. And she said, nothing but left behind on paper. See Perun's latest drop this morning. By the way, I would recommend Perun. I've watched a lot of Perun. This is Perun. This is his, and so this would be his latest, How Lies Destroy Armies. I have not yet watched it, but I have watched enough of Perun to be able to, without reservation, say, go watch it. Okay, UK's Wallace says Ukraine has momentum, but Russia is a long way from giving up. I think that statement captures exactly where we are. Ukraine has the momentum with them. They have this on their side. They are moving. They're on the march. But we're a long way from being done with this. And if you think that we're done, or if you're just going to check out now, it's the wrong time. There's a long way to go. And I think that's a perceptive insight. Donetsk battles are hell, Ukraine's Zelensky says about Kherson's as Kherson mops up. So we've had all our attention in Kherson. There's a whole another front line over in Donetsk and Luhansk. So you got to be aware that that's still going on. I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit, but first I want to get through these. Museum of World War II in Kyiv can be turned into a museum of liberation. So they're going to rethink how the museum is itself. A general vision for the museum will be for the liberation struggle of Ukraine. Exactly the opposite of what Putin wants. Putin wants Ukraine's national identity to go away and just meld into what is part of Greater Russia. And the Ukrainians don't want that. They're their own people, and they have their own, they've been on their own track in life. They want to be separate. They do not want to be part of what is Russia. The USA is to hold a 7th Ramstein meeting next week. A Ramstein is basically a meeting where leaders from multiple nations have gotten together to figure out how are we going to arm the Ukrainians who need to be armed to repel the Russians. Why Poland may have, this was a really insightful article, why Poland may have the most to gain from a Russian defeat of Ukraine. So now the Poles and the Baltic states have been like the greatest allies of Ukraine in this whole thing. And there's a reason for it. It goes back historically, and you're going to see this with Poland, but the same holds true for the Baltic states. Say if the outcome of the war could be determined by the toss of a coin, the camps would be clear. There's democracies on one side who want Ukraine to win, and there's autocracies who want it to lose. So, and I thought about that. I read that first line. I thought, that's really interesting. When you look at those that voted with Russia, like to respect the Donetsk and Luhansk and Kherson, to look at the annexation and say we respect it, it's only autocracies that have respected it. Those that were silent, there was mostly autocracies, and India was like one of the few democracies or real true democracies that's there. India is a weird thing. They've lined up more with Russia than not without being helpful to Russia because they don't want any sanctions, but they kind of lean that way. But that's generally speaking, this is the case. This leaves the democracies divided in at least 3 camps: the English-speaking, the Western European, and the Eastern Europe minus Hungary. What Putin calls the collective West all want Ukraine to win, but not necessarily to the same extent. And so there are differences between the different camps, but generally they want Ukraine to win. For Poland and the Baltic countries, the matter is simple. They want Ukraine's victory to be unequivocal. Why? Because they've already gone down this path. They've already fought with Russia before, and they don't want to do it again. For Poland, Russia has augured conquest, partitions, genocide, colonialism, and communism. So they've had years, hundreds of years of experience fighting with Russia. Over the past 600 years, Russia and Poland have waged more than a dozen wars. There's little love lost between them. Ukraine's success would also entail historical chance for the region to exit the status of periphery and become a counterbalance to the EU's big Western member states. Now there's that and a counterbalance to Russia. So if there is a block of, say, the Baltic states, Poland, Romania, Ukraine, Moldova could even join that. Whoever, this block of Eastern Europe states could not only be a buffer between the West and Russia, but a counterbalance to both the West and Russia. Okay, so there's something really interesting about that. The article goes on, but that was the gist of that. Okay, let's turn our attention to fun with Russian state media. First article, this is in Pravda. Russian forces take control of Pavlovka in Donetsk People's Republic. Now, remember, you just had what happened in Kherson, and they're not talking much about what's going on in Kherson in RT and Pravda and other media, but they are talking about how they took control of Pavlovka. Okay, well, where's Pavlovka? Here's Pavlovka. This thing here, let's look at a deep state map. See this? Let's go back a day. See that movement right there? That's it. Right there, right there. Let's zoom in. Okay, see how much ground they took? Wow, look at that. Let's talk about that in the news, because that is something to really hang your hat on. Okay, let's go. Kherson's regional government, we will defend our land. Well, I don't think that they will. I don't think that they can, and they blew the bridges, so it's not likely that Ukraine's coming across easily that way, and it's not likely that the Russians are coming across the other way. So I think this is kind of hollow. We know for sure that what we're doing is a just cause. The just cause is pushing us to make decisions that will give us opportunity to recreate the entire territory. Yes, it's hard for us now, but we will defend our land anyway. Okay, well, with what? How are you going to do it? What's the plan? There is none. Okay, Belgian senator, divided Russia will be a nightmare for Europe. Huh? Who's talking about, so this is a Belgian senator, but who's talking about dividing Russia? No, but they play this in Russian media because the argument is like the West, they just want to nuke us, they just want to divide us, they just want to destroy us. The West wasn't paying any attention to you until February. I mean, well, maybe January, December, whenever the satellite footage started showing us like something's going on in Belarus and the border of Russia. So the West is not that in. They're just not that into you. But they make a big thing about this, and they say in here this laughable line: the EU countries could consider the division of Ukraine instead. Huh? Okay, so anybody who says anything nonsensical or, pro-Russian perspective can get into Pravda RRU. If you want to get published, if you are just that hard up to get published, write a very pro-Russian propaganda piece, and RT or Pravda or one of those will carry it for you. I'm not suggesting that you do it. I'm just being somewhat facetious. Okay, I want to see this one video. Actually, there's two videos. Here's one. This was really interesting because this was asking, now the whole world is witnessing Russian war crimes in Ukraine. I look at Lavrov and see images from Bucha, Mariupol, and Kherson. What does the world see? So it's interesting juxtaposing these two things next to each other. Look at the images on the left while Lavrov is being received. It's disorienting to realize just how much damage the Russians have actually caused, and yet we're treating, oh, welcome, statesman. No, you should be a pariah because of what you're doing here on that left side, what you've done, how you've devastated the lives of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, millions displaced, and yet we're receiving you as if you did something good. Okay, I'm done with that. One more. Yesterday I talked about they ran like goats. There was a headline of villagers saying they ran like goats, and somebody chimed in and said, yeah, we really like that. So this is the Russians running from Kherson. There we go, running like goats. I just find it amusing to see the goats running. I don't know why, but I see it. I find it amusing. It's pretty good leaping ability. Okay, that's it for the news today. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe if you have not subscribed already, and please like or leave a comment because it helps YouTube realize that this might be worth sharing. Thank you. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.